3 weeks of downward price action, and some people are calling this the end of the bull run for crypto. Now, was that the case? Is crypto destined to just be crushed from here? Well, let's look at the price action and see what we see. There are sometimes unexpected reversals that happen quite a bit earlier than everyone is anticipating. Is this one of those? Well, join us as we look closer at the markets, because if we already hit the top, there will be clues. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realized the potential here for life-changing gains over a longer period, I often tell people 4 to 8 years is really the time period, and you're looking for a discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto 7 years ago. And back then, I was looking for a crypto channel just like this. I wanted to leverage somebody else's experience, hopefully that they had tons of years and years of experience in investing. They had already figured out a lot of the patterns in crypto so that I could just learn from them. Well, I found that most crypto YouTube personalities, though many are really entertaining, a lot of fun, or they cover the news, they didn't really understand investing cycles, business investing like I hoped they would. So later, as I became experienced in crypto, I decided to create this channel so that we could have this network together, not just me, but a family of rainmakers. And that network helps us identify things, talk about the real things to look at as we analyze projects at a deeper level to see what are the potential returns here, is the timing potentially good, those kinds of things. So the YouTube channel is where you can join in for free. You can get this information on a weekly basis. If you want more than this, you can join us in our private Patreon group, which gives you access to the Discord. This Discord channel for our Rainmaker family is where the best discussions are. Well, do note, I'm not a financial advisor. Paul, who was joining us today, is also not a financial advisor. So none of this to be taken as financial advice. These are our opinions on what we think about things for our own investments. Now make it rain on the like button. Strap in for the show because today is Wednesday and Paul from Definity is joining us.
Great to be here. Hi, everyone in the chat and joining online and joining in the future when you watch it back. Yeah, here we are.
All right, everybody jumping in. Love to see everyone. Justin with the first comment. Let's get this bread, gents, which is what Randy says all the time. Howdy, Rainmakers.
Hey, Chris.
Got a suggestion already for ANKR? Sure, let's add that in. Let it rain. I do think in the coming months, we're going to see some excitement. Paul, you usually look at a lot of markets. I'm usually completely laser focused in on the crypto markets. What do you see going on in the broader markets that you follow?
So I think the big question is on everybody's mind, is this move over? You said it in the top of the show, in the intro, and I just don't think it is. I think the risk on view, the risk on parameters that we look at in terms of the stock markets, in terms of where US yields are going, where the dollar's going, and where base precious metals are going, point a picture of risk on. Now, nothing is risk on in one way forever. Obviously, you get pullbacks, and in those pullbacks, sentiment changes and everyone gets upset because, you know, the ETF was supposed to be what pushed Bitcoin to 100,000 and it hasn't. So you get this FUD, and then the market goes quiet and people move to other things or stop watching it, and they get basically bored, which is a human emotion. But the market is always there, and that's the thing about markets. I think anyone who's been in the market for a long time will tell you patience is a really important thing. And we've sat through a really extensive bear market, and you know, each week the market was going down and it looked really terrible at the bottom with the FTX situation, and people called it the end of the move. And I just, you know, sentiment was so negative, and the market stopped going down, and that was the first technical sign that it was going to go back up again. And also that the whole story, for anybody who's seen the complete end of a cycle, which is something very similar to what happened with the dot-com boom. Maybe I'm showing my age. Well, obviously my age is probably a bit obvious, but for younger people, the dot-com boom was a period where it was pretty much insanity as to what was going on, and that, I think, will give us the end signal for cryptocurrencies. So first of all, it gets ignored, then you get these rallies, then people get a bit interested in it, and far-sighted people in the community recognize what it can do. Things do get overblown. People rush in, gold mining it and looking for opportunities, some good opportunities, some are more scams just to take advantage of people not knowing what's going on. And in the bull market, some get shaken out, but everything then synchronizes to the upside in one massive crescendo, which I think is what we're heading to. So when I look at the market right now, I ask myself, is this the end of the move? It doesn't seem to be. And that doesn't mean it can't go down a bit more, but technically everything is still moving upwards. In fact, if we look at US equities, which I think a viewer asked a few weeks back about what index would you follow in the US, and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq in the US, the biggest market, the most important market, is still tearing higher. So whilst that's going on, equities, as I've always said, is the most sensitive to the risk on story, and that those are pushing higher. So, I can show you the charts of those, and obviously we're going to look at the majors and Bitcoin and on all that sort of stuff in a bit. But basically, the story is still one of a bullish market. We've got the Dow Jones, which has underperformed a little bit, but I just think this is a consolidation before it eventually takes out this massive 40,000 level. The transportation index hasn't been doing much for a long time. That's just pretty much range bound. Nasdaq, which is technology focused, which we should prick our ears up to. Technology, Bitcoin, altcoins, all these technologies that people are creating. This is the sort of thing that we could see happening to the market when it comes back into focus, which could be a few months, and then we get this rip-roaring move as all of a sudden AI was a story, and for the longest time people just ignored it, and then all of a sudden they woke up to it and it became this massive story, and we all know what happened to Nvidia. So it's surprising, or well, not surprising if you followed the markets for a long time, but it can be surprising how quickly the market can change its mind. And with that in mind, just for those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, just remember back in October last year when we were looking at this S&P chart and discussing this low here, and it was after the terrible situation in the Middle East with what happened in Israel, and there was many people saying short the market, it's going to crash, it's going to go down, and here we are, it's trading all the way up from this 4,100, it's going 5,600, and it's still going higher, and there's still people calling the top of the market and saying it's too high. And one thing that I know from technical analysis is that a trend is a trend. You go with the trend until it gives you a signal that it has reversed, and for the moment that hasn't given a signal. So for me, anything that is on the bearish side, on any call for an end of a bull market move, seems to be premature. If we look at other things that could be leading to a potential move down in the dollar gets weaker, US companies become cheaper, they effectively go on sale, and emerging markets who borrow in dollars, those borrowings become cheaper on a relative basis. A weaker dollar equates to an interest rate cut and is basically positive for the global markets, and also indicates that there's no fear, or less. There's never no fear, but less fear, because when people panic, they tend to go to the place that has the most nuclear weapons, and the biggest arsenal, and that's the US. I know China's obviously in competition, and there's the fears over Russia, but in terms of technology, I think everybody would go to the US and buy US dollars as soon as they see fear, and also the Swiss franc because of its neutrality. So a weaker US dollar, as represented by rising gold and silver prices, which are gaining some momentum, and base metals as well. I won't go in the individual ones, but they're all moving up, is a really good sign. So as far as I can see, we've seen a consolidation in the base and precious metals. They're now moving up. Equities are moving up. So what's not to like about the picture? I think it all looks pretty good. Now, of course, that's maybe not much comfort if you're sitting on positions that are retracing and you're wondering, will it ever turn around? And the question here is, there will be some coins, there will be some projects that will benefit more or lead further or lead the way in the next bull phase. Bitcoin probably, ETH I think may lead it ahead of Bitcoin on this particular occasion. But what we're going to be looking for is how the market, or what shows relative strength. So if you think of it in terms of property, where do people want to live? They always want to live in centers, in city centers. That tends to be more expensive. And as the market gets more speculative, it looks more outside. And this is something that Rain knows obviously all about because of his real estate background. The further you get out, the more speculative it becomes. And the speculative moves on the outside are the ones that kind of follow later on. Now, you can have massive gains in those particular higher risk ones. So if you think of those as like the altcoins, but not necessarily everything will go together. There may be some areas where it doesn't move with everything else. So this is what we look for, a change in trend. What's leading the way, what's holding up. If you look back, if you want to do some of your own research and just look at how, for example, the biggest financial crisis that we've seen was 2008, and you'll see that there were some markets that pulled back. Actually, you could look at during COVID as well. You see that some markets pulled back, but they didn't pull back that much. And as soon as there was any sign of strength, they were already into new highs. And those markets are way higher. So that strength, that relative strength, is what we're going to be looking for in this next phase. When the market pulls back, as it has done, which ones are going to be nearer the high, which ones are going to be taking the highs out. And that doesn't mean that something that's low won't turn around, because of course that's absolutely possible. But we'll be looking at potentially the relative strength of certain projects and see which ones lead. Now, the ones that lag can turn into leaders as well. That happens as well. So all of a sudden, an area can be. I mean, there's areas of London that were almost not no go, but not particularly great, and then within sort of 10 years, they're now these absolutely amazing places that are so expensive to buy, and you think, what the hell happened there? And so that's exactly the same thing that can happen with market. But that transition is why we have to keep looking at the market each week, because you won't see that change unless you're watching the market in the boring periods as well as the interesting periods. And again, you probably will only hear about interesting projects, inverted commas interesting, in the media when they're possibly nearer their highs. And that's again why I like to use charts, because moves out of the bases tend to be very quiet and nobody's really talking about them. It's only when they're screaming higher that they get the media attention. And again, that in the future will be one of the things that we'll look out for to tell us that we're potentially at a major top. So for the moment, I think we need to hunker down and just sort of wait out this consolidation period. Something else to mention here is also we've got, we're in July, we're nearly halfway through July. After July, of course, August is where everybody goes on holiday. The world goes on holiday. All the main traders go on holiday. The markets tend to be a little quieter, not so much activity. So we might see a consolidation period up until the end of this month, maybe extending into August. But then I think towards the end of August, things could suddenly start to break out, and it might surprise people, because as I was saying again earlier, that I think that the September, if there's going to be a rate cut, it probably will be in September, but the market will anticipate that. and it will start gearing up, I think, as we approach the end of August, beginning of September. So what I'm basically saying is we may have a period of a further period of consolidation, and I wouldn't rule it out for reasons of cyclical, the cyclical nature of what happens in the city around August. But you know, we're going to look at the charts in a moment. There's some really interesting things happening there.
Yes, absolutely. But Paul, some personalities on YouTube told me that the bull run might be over.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it very much. The bull market's not over. I mean, it's not something that you can call over until the signs are there to tell you that it's over. If you see what I mean. I mean, it might be over, but it also might be ready to go 5x, and I'm talking Bitcoin. So those calls are just as equally valid. You know, I can be as bullish as somebody else can be bearish, is what I'm trying to say. I can counterweight that, but you can't just. I mean, if we actually look at the chart of Bitcoin, what is it about Bitcoin that is suddenly calling the end of the bull market? You know, the fact that it's come back to this 53,410 or very close to it level that's been sitting on the chart for a long time as a pullback point. Yes, we've got a double top, and that was triggered here. And yeah, it has pulled back, but it's not even got close to its long run trend line, which is all the way down here. So in some ways, it's being punished for having a massive rally. And when you have a massive rally, you can have a correction and a sideways move. And in context, if we look at this next to other things, and I said this last week, you know, ETH was outperforming. So ETH is higher than Bitcoin. So there's what we call non-confirmation between two major assets. Now, if they were both much lower and everything else was much lower, that might be indicating a further move to the downside. But what it's showing is there's non-confirmation of this top. You know, we were down here at 28 and now we're up at 3,120 and pushing up again. So Bitcoin has made like a bit of a spike low where it spikes down and then spikes up again. Look, it might not be out of the woods, but it's definitely too early to say the end of a bull market. I think the top will be far more pronounced and volatile. And also, it would be extremely unusual if sentiment was this bearish at the top. It's never really that bearish. And somebody was mentioning the fear and greed index a couple of sessions ago, and people are just either not in it or too bearish at this point for this to be the end. And nobody knows anything for 100% certain, but I just don't think that's right.
Yeah, we definitely are not in a in the ballpark of certainty, right? A lot of what we're doing is just trying to play the odds, identify when the odds are going a certain way versus another way. But I often help people understand, like my wife and other people, especially are new, that crypto often, even in a bull run, goes 2 steps forward and 1 back, or every once in a while it goes 3 steps forward and 2 back, even during a bull run. And that's exactly what we've experienced here. This is no different than normally happens. We got some good comments in the chat. I'm going to pull up a little bit of historical Bitcoin price analysis, because for a while there was this lengthening cycle going on, and the last cycle kind of threw that for a loop. And what lengthening cycles talks about is from when the Bitcoin halving was till the peak of the next bull market was lengthening until this last time. And with the double peak that we had, it's unclear what is happening. So I guess let me go ahead and pull that up.
Sorry.
Well, this is the Bitcoin, trajectory all the way since the beginning, right? So once upon a time, you could get Bitcoin back here for 6 cents. When it dropped, you could actually get it for a penny here. Boy, those days are gone. And then we see it had a big bull run in 2011 with real bull run happening. This is just when people started to become aware of Bitcoin, and it went up to $32. came back to $2. But the first real Bitcoin run after the halving, the first halving was in 2012. And it ran up to 2013, peaking in December of 2013, early December. Now, a lot of people don't realize Bitcoin doesn't have every 4 years. It's actually less than every 4 years. So the next peak being in December of 2017 means from when the halving was, and I don't have the dates marked in here of when the halving was a little bit longer from when it was here. And so the cycles seem to be lengthening. In 2021, though, we had this weird double top. And I think that there was some manipulation going on with Sam Bankman-Fried coordinating with some other people to really try to cut short Bitcoin cycle this time. And some of that came out in SBF's the investigation of SBF, and some of his communications came out that he was coordinating with other players to cut the bull run short. I don't know why, but can I give look what happened not long after that? There was a Bitcoin ETF and everyone went crazy. So if you knew that was going to happen, you'd want the price to be low, wouldn't you? And this is exactly what I mean by looking at charts. You can't know why things are happening because the market is looking so much further ahead, or things are happening so much further ahead that when we had that base and it started going up, people were saying, well, why is it going up? This is going to go lower. There's no reason for it. You know, it's over. The whole sector's ruined and all that sort of stuff. And yet the market was going higher. So who was buying and why? You know, what did they know? And you know, some people are just buying because they still believe in the projects and they still believe in it for the long term, of course. But some people were buying because they knew what was happening, and they knew that further down the curve there was going to potentially be this ETF, and it was going to be extremely bullish. Yeah. So I can't say whether the cycles continue to lengthen or not. I can see the momentum building up that crypto really is ready to run probably some more this year, with the blow off top maybe happening end of year this year or early next year, which further would suggest not lengthening cycles, but shortening cycles. Probably as the market has started to figure out this Bitcoin halving thing causes a price pump later, well, then people jump on the bandwagon earlier. And so I'm not certain that there continue to be lengthening cycles like there had been. All right. Some thoughts. Bro had some great questions here. Just last cycle, we talked about lengthening cycles. This one, we're talking about them shortening. Reality so far is that they're all about the same. It'd be interesting because the major blow off top happened in December of 2017 for Bitcoin. And then the blow off top for 2021 happened in both March. But then when we had the metaverse run, it actually exceeded the March highs by a little bit and then pulled back tremendously. So I had this interesting double top. What it's going to look like this time, I don't know. But there's a lot of factors in play that we don't know the answers to. Trump, if he wins the U.S. presidency, has vowed to be very, very pro-cryptocurrency. Biden, if he continues to be the Democrat nominee, well, he hasn't been very pro-crypto so far. I don't know why that would change should he win, or if he has some kind of successor, who that might be, Kamala or who. That's really unclear. So there's a lot of uncertainty as far as the U.S. goes. What is certain is the global adoption of crypto continues to happen. There's a lot of pressure. I watched a really good video by Coin Bureau talking about how central banks around the world kind of force politicians to act a certain way. And especially in Europe, and you might see some of these countries looking for a more stable currency than the euro to go to. There's going to be pressure on countries in the coming years to go to something more stable and reliable like Bitcoin for a store of value. I think we'll continue to see that trend grow. So far, it's what El Salvador and a few other countries gone to a Bitcoin standard. I think over time, more and more countries go to that. that is part of what's going to drive Bitcoin's adoption across the whole world in the coming years. How soon does that all happen? I don't know. Trump has talked about the US buying Bitcoin to back its currency. Should that happen, if Trump wins, then every other country is going to feel pressure to do the same.
Yeah, I didn't know he said that, actually. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, and it's fairly recent. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy has been working pretty closely with Trump, and I don't think Trump really fully understands what's happening with crypto, but I think Vivek has a really good idea of that, and I think that idea probably comes from Vivek, who is really a smart guy and pretty crypto aware. How deep is his knowledge? It's at least somewhat deep. So, and he probably continues to get updated now that the crypto space is putting money into lobbying efforts. It's a lot easier for somebody like Vivek or Trump or even the Biden team to get very updated on really what's happening in this sector, should they have the interest to learn.
Yeah, I think if the banks become more and more interested, and I think they are, they're just going to lobby for it, lobby for changes, and that's what will drive it. And I just can't see why they wouldn't want to do that in this next phase, because there would be so much opportunity for trading. There'll be a lot of volatility, and whether it ends up being a long-term proposition or not, it's like there was how much was made during the dot-com booms. You know, there was a lot of money to be made, and I think the banks are savvy enough to get involved and to want to get involved with it in a big way. So that's institutional adoption is the next big phase, I think, and it's still at the early stages, which is why, again, it seems unlikely that we're at the top, because you would expect them to come in a very big way. So, and also just to your comment about people are saying that this is the end of the bull market. Imagine going back to sort of, well, look at the chart here, end of 22, beginning of Jan 23, and SBF stuff all happened around here. We panicked into the low, and then the market turned around. All the while we were long-term bulls, by the way. So it's not that we were just saying it around here. Obviously, we needed to wait for the trend to end, but whilst that was going on, at sort of 17,000 or wherever it was around here, if somebody had said to you, if you jumped into a time machine and somebody said, I've come from the future, I've come from July 2024, Bitcoin is trading around 57,000 and we think it's the end of the bull market, they'd be like, what are you talking about? It's 17,000 here, it's at 57,000, and you think it's the end of the bull market. Why? It's going up. It's gone up so much. How could you have that view? I mean, first of all, that would be an incredible thing to know. But second of all, it'd be like, well, okay, if it was back down at 20,000 in 2024, July 24, you might say, well, yeah, it probably is, because it's gone nowhere. It's gone down and nobody's bought it. No one's interested in it. It's gone sideways, but it's gone up a lot. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make on the big picture. The trend is still up. And in the chart that you showed, the trend is still up, so I can't call a top, because it's not, it would violate rules of technical analysis. So again, just to preface that doesn't mean it won't go down. It doesn't mean that it's definitely, it's definitely going to go up, because we can't say anything with definite, but we can look at probabilities, and the probabilities say that this is not the top. This is not the top, as we've described it before.
Yeah, if I can just get to, 20 trillion in profits, maybe I can hire the right scientist to build me a time machine. And I can start giving you guarantees. Once I have a time machine, I'll go into the future, check out, get the price history, and then come back and make even more money.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the more you look at the markets, the more you see a repeat in different things. That's why I like to try and show things in markets that maybe you don't have so much interest in the sense that, you know, you might not really care where the S&P is, but it's almost a good thing to look at because you're less emotionally tied to it. And it's the emotion side of it that actually drives most of the trading anyway. So that's, again, the hardest thing to disconnect from, the emotion. And again, that's why for me charts help, because they're very cold. They're not bullish or bearish. They just are, and you're just reading the price action. That makes it sound very simple, but of course we all know it's not, because once real money's involved, then you feel very different. And so so trying to keep those emotions in check and just look at the market as it is, not as the emotion is being presented by the you know, mainstream. I don't even look at it. I don't even listen to anybody else anyway, really. You know, certainly not anyone who doesn't use technical analysis, because you will get pulled into big headline stories at the wrong time.
Yeah. And well, what I learned after being in crypto for about 3 years is most of these headlines are wrong. And the headlines, if you're trying to grow a big channel, you have to grow a big channel by getting lots of click-through rates. So in order to get high click-through rates, you got to play on people's fears or their greed. So when people are feeling greedy, you play to their greed. So say some token has gone up 100x. So if you want to get a whole bunch of views, then you do optimistic videos playing to their greed on why it might go another 100x from there. And you'll get lots of views and you'll get lots of new subscribers. And the algorithm will see, oh my gosh, this video is getting lots of views and lots of new subscribers, and we'll push it out. And so if your goal is to grow a really big crypto YouTube channel, that's what you do. If you're trying to share undervalued gems with people, essentially you're looking at projects that nobody else is looking at. So you do get punished by the YouTube algorithm. However, it can help with a greater goal of creating a very informed audience that outperforms everyone else. That's my goal with the audience, is provide, you know, help create a super well-informed audience that outperforms every other crypto audience. It would help if the audience was bigger from the standpoint of it gives us broader reach into projects, say really big projects that I want to bring on and interview. Gives us broader notoriety, which then helps too. But I'm not willing to do what it takes to go that route of like essentially throwing the audience under the bus by providing overly optimistic videos when everyone's feeling very bullish or greedy, and then overly pessimistic videos when everybody's panicking, because essentially I'd be helping panic people out at the bottom and helping people FOMO in at the top, which destroys your audience. So it would defeat the broader purpose of this channel. All right, let's take a look. Let's jump into some of our picks this week. Let's take a look at Matic.
Yeah, Matic is one that I really liked during this period here, because it was doing very well, and I thought even on the pullback it actually held up very well from its low, and it was trading in a triangular constriction which should have broken out by now, and the time element is kind of wearing on a little bit. So it's I can understand the frustration and why we've come back to have a look at it. I think it's a good time to have another look. I don't think it's bearish. I just think it's still neutral, and anything that's going sideways in this way for me is a wait, but it's going sideways in the way it did it here. If you look here before it broke out, so in the short term, yes, it's underperforming, and I would like to see this move into from outperform to market perform, and then you know, outperform everything. But it's not doing that. It's just sort of caught up in a range. And if I think we've had this central line around 73 cents here, where it's just pivoted above and below and above and below for a long time. So perhaps on that scale, it's becoming a little undervalued, and maybe it's getting ready to turn. But for the moment, it's just got to be a wait until we get some significant breakout. But I do still think that this is one that's worth watching for the long term. But I need to see some form of breakout before I can get, extra sort of bullish and go, yeah, right, here we go. We're off to the races now. So for me, it's going to be a wait. As much as I like the big picture, bit more patience. Break of $1.24, that level there is absolutely crucial. I don't mind waiting for that to go. I know that could mean that I'm missing it at a very cheap level here, but it could also mean that, if I buy it here, it might just still hold capital while something else might be moving. So in isolation, I would say, it could be a good area here, but compared to everything else, I'd say it's a wait.
Nice. I did want to take a second to give a shout out to our strategic partners, both OneChain and Definity. Now, the strategic partnerships allow us to give away some tokens on our Friday live streams, which I do once a month. This Friday, I'll be doing a live stream, so join us. I'll be giving away some OneChain and Definity. Little hint, follow their Twitter closely. That's often where I draw the questions from for you to win. So check that out this Friday. Thank you to both OneChain and Definity for the strategic partnership. It's fun. Number one, I'm so careful on who I'll do strategic partners with. I really need to believe in the project long term, like their technology, like their team. So yes, I have hundreds of offers and I tell them all no. So if I say yes, it's because I really like the company behind it. All right. So that one was a wait, and given your principles, that is never your buy area. For me though, I get quite excited at that buy area. Now, if everyone remembers back to Matic here, and even here, everyone was very bullish on Matic. Even in the bear market, Matic was outperforming everything. One of the clues you can often, I guess, listen for that should be a warning sign is when you're scrolling through the different YouTube channels talking about crypto, if a whole bunch are bullish on it, what are they bullish on? They're usually bullish on things that have been outperforming everything else. But over time, like what goes up does come down, and you've seen that with Matic. So Matic ran quite hard. An amazing time to buy Matic was prior to 2021. And Matic actually really took off in January 2021 ahead of the crypto market. Most of the altcoins really started to run in February and March. And yet early January, it just blasted off for about a 300x return, depending on where you had got it. So you could have got it way back here for under a penny. It went to actually $3, though it doesn't fully show that here. So about a 300x return on Matic. And then what goes up does come down. And so you see this consolidation and retracement pattern is starting to be at a really good deal again at 51 cents and below. And I like this lower trend line for acquisitions. So if we draw this lower trend line, look how it's following that lower trend line. Now, there's no guarantee it can't break below. And Paul usually waits for a confirmation that it breaks above this line, and he takes that trade. I often look for things that I like fundamentally, and I take that lower trend line trade, and it's pretty close to this. Now, am I actually buying Matic? No, the market cap's too high. I'm not in a lot of blue chips. If I was buying blue chips and just looking for hopefully a 5 or 10, or if I'm really lucky, 15 or 20x return, yes, I would be buying Matic at this price. I'm in riskier projects that I'm hoping for a 20, a 50, 100, or 200x return. And so Matic just doesn't fit that threshold anymore. It used to. And I made some really nice gains on it when it ran up from these lower prices. But now it's solidly in blue chip category. The massive gains, well, I don't know how in this next bull run it could have a 300x ahead of it. So I'm not picking up Matic myself, even though I rate it as a buy if I were looking for blue chips. All right, let's take a look at our next one, which is Render. And if you remember Render, everyone was talking about in bullish and bullish and bullish and bullish and endlessly bullish because it was outperforming the rest of the altcoin market over this past year.
Yeah, I like render. I think it looked good technically, and some broke out in a way that would be really bullish, and we looked at those coins, and I was bullish on it, and they snapped back, and it those moves were negated, and some continued. Render was one that did continue, and I still like it. I still think that it's got potential to go for another leg higher, um, especially compared to what we've seen before. There is going to be some pressure on it because often people take profits in what's gone up and they buy more of what's not moving. That can work sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. So we shall see. There's very good support at this $5.74 level. We've got the third time that it's touched it, and we've got a trend line here as well. So there's a few reasons why 5.7 is a really important support level that I wouldn't want to see it close below on a kind of 2 week or week basis as a filter. But overall, the trend is still up. And as I've said before, that's what I have to go with. So is it enough to say buy it here? I'm not sure. Look, I'm going to say yes, because what something's got to lead the way higher. And if we compare this to Bitcoin's actually, Bitcoin is leading the way, or has led the way, or led the way up. So people buy Bitcoin, then they move into the altcoins as a secondary. But what we're seeing here is Bitcoin has actually underperformed a bit when it comes to what's happened to render. So Bitcoin is sort of down here and bounce, whereas render's holding in better on a relative basis. So I wonder if that means, say, if Bitcoin's hit a low, that 53 level is that major support is the end of the move, and now we're going to consolidate and move up. If we do that, then this should do the same. So I'm going to say, whilst it's above 5.7, 574, it's a buy, and I'll give a little area of cushion, which is if we take this area here as well. So we've got a support zone between 5.7 and 5.3. So if it closes below here, then yeah, we could be in for a bigger correction. But this is why I put this line in here. This is the main trend rate, and anything that goes above that is showing strong or accelerating price action. And whilst it might feel like the market should do that all the time, that's more unusual than it is usual. It's just that we're in this really bullish period. We have seen some really bullish moves, and people get used to really fast gains. Whereas when they're investing in, say, other stocks, kind of whatever normal stocks are, people just don't expect these sort of parabolic moves to the upside. So it is sometimes a bit unreasonable to expect the market to keep going up at that rate for an extended period of time. It needs to consolidate. Excuse me. Market needs to consolidate sometimes, take a bit of a breather, pull back a bit, let people take some profits, and then move up. So overall, I still like the chart.
Yes. And I don't disagree with that. Would I be buying render here? Well, it's actually at the lower trend line, which is where I like to buy. Now, am I? Render is an interesting one. I liked render a lot way down here. And I was like, this is an undervalued gem that nobody is talking about. And so this was 50 cents, 42 cents, all in this range under $1. Now it's 6x of that. Now, here's the downside of it. Do I think render has a great future? Yes, I do. I don't think it'll even break this downward trend line, though it might. And if it does, cool. Render, where is it going to go to? Well, let's just speculate a little bit, because the truth is I don't have a magic crystal ball. I don't have a time machine yet, so I can't go into the future, see what it ends up doing. I just have to make probability guesses. The market cap is already at 2.6 billion. So if it does incredibly well from here, this bull run, it could go 40x that. That would be over $100 billion market cap. That's quite a bit. So that's probably the upside potential of this. And the lower side potential of it is maybe it goes another 10x from here. So Render might be a 10x to 40x play, which is not bad for a blue chip. In fact, it's one of the better potential blue chips. So from that point, I'm really happy it did this nice pullback, because it was all the way up at $13. And when it was at $13, every crypto YouTube channel was talking about how it would just keep going to the moon. Note that it didn't. Why? 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Things don't just go straight to the moon. They usually pull back for a chance to load up. Am I loading up on Render? No. I had Render and I took profits when I got really ahead. I rolled it into really low cap coins. I no longer hold any Render. And I won't be buying it just because I'm not buying blue chips. If I was buying blue chips at this price, I would absolutely be buying it. Why? For a blue chip to have 10x to 40x potential, that's pretty incredible. So I would hold a large portion of Render if that were the case. I'm not. So this was a fantastic suggestion and fantastic timing on a fantastic suggestion. Notice the major crypto YouTube channels that were talking about it here. Oh, I'm showing the wrong thing. The ones that were talking about it when it was at $13, they're no longer talking about it when it is at $6.50 or $6.60. Why? Well, because nobody is talking about it. So doing a video on Render won't get them traction and YouTube channel growth. And so most crypto YouTube channels are not set up to help you buy at the right timing. In fact, they're set up to help you buy or do the exact wrong things at exactly the wrong times. All right.
So Bill Gardner's got an interesting comment, I think perhaps on the basis of what I was saying. Don't know if you want to put that. So I think that's a really interesting comment, because I think everybody's got to do what works for them, what works for their mindset. For me, I like to go for things that are strong or breaking out and leading the way, and I try and press that until it breaks, if you like. But it depends where you are in the cycle as to whether that's a good idea. Because, you know, if things are turning out, and I guess that's part of a broader strategy, and when everything's going up or when we're in a bull market, that's an interesting way to approach it, because you have a better chance of things turning around and things that have lagged suddenly catching and taking off again. But at a later stage, when you're in the bear phase, that can be difficult, because things that are going down or underperforming can continue to underperform and underperform even worse. So to my mind, it depends where you are in the cycle as to how you approach that. But again, it just, as I say, reinforces the point. Excuse me, reinforces the point that everybody should do what works for them, what works for their mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Developing your own rules that you see succeed. So a lot of the rules that I use for myself is just what I've seen that works from 7 years experience. And at least it works for me. Some people don't have the patience to play it the way I play it. It won't work for them. Other people, like, one of the advantages that Paul has is Paul can, he looks at price analysis across many different markets. So no matter what, one market is going to be signaling that it's ready to take off, and he can play that market. So he doesn't have to have patience for what he's doing. I only play in the crypto space. I like the crypto space because every 4 years so far, it's had a massive blow off top. So if I'm generally dollar cost averaging in near the bottoms, and I'm generally selling somewhere near the tops, those swings are incredibly profitable. All right, get into some more comments. Scott had a great comment here. My internet computer protocol tripled and I wish I had sold. Now I'm even. How did I miss that to sell? Well, I'll give you my honest thoughts. Why you probably missed it to sell. Because as it was taking off, all the YouTube channels were talking about it and how it's just going to keep going up from there, which gives you a little bit of confirmation bias that, oh, it's not going to stop from here. It's going to keep going. And then it pulls back, especially when the greater bull market hasn't happened and you have something shoot off ahead of everything else. Notice there's usually a pullback then. And that's exactly what happened with Internet Computer Protocol. And that's how we often miss sells. I know that because I've done that myself. All right. Emerson asks, hi, Rain, is it possible to have another interview with the Spores team in the coming weeks? Well, they never got back to me in May when I requested an interview. I do know that Duke saw my message, hasn't responded, so I sent a follow-up message both to him and to his assistant. So we'll see. Probably got busy, saw the message, forgot to respond, and then just got busy with other things. All right, let's look at Arbitrum. Now, remember, everyone was talking about Arbitrum for quite a while, and now they're not.
Yeah. So where did I put that? Oh yeah, I was just looking at internet. Say, what was it? Arbitrum. Here we go. Yeah. So chart of this is not looking good, unfortunately, and it's not one that I can buy. I mean, it's had a rally in July, so it's had a better July than it has for some time in this month. At least it's not made new lows this month. There's a small basing pattern here, very small, or what would be described as a short-term base that will probably take it up to this 75 cents level. But that's where the rubber hits the road as to whether it can get through there, because this is the major underwater part of the chart where you've got a major low in September 23. And this is why I don't like seeing markets near major lows, because you can get this acceleration down when it breaks. And apart from the fact that the trend is down anyway, so there are some people, and sometimes it is tempting to buy against these levels because it's worked before. And we talked about that with OMI when it was hitting its major low, and it worked a few times, but then obviously it went through and then it's come back again. But people will buy it against that level because it's so close to a really important support. But if it breaks through just a little bit, they'll let it go. And that's another reason why you get this acceleration. Now, it hasn't recovered enough of that move yet to be out of the woods. And if we take this as the main downward trend line, for a long-term buy, it needs to break that. If it's going to be anything more than a 2 or 3 day punt, maybe 4 at the most, it needs to at least break this line as well and get back over this 74 cents level, which is crucial to me because of where it formed the low around there and has now unceremoniously broken it in one fell swoop. So what markets do sometimes is they come back to these levels and they hit them, and then that barrier is resistance, and then it goes down again. So I'd need to see it definitely through there and definitely through this trend line before we could even start talking about buying it, or I would buy it. Now, this may be a great opportunity on a fundamental basis, but I can't, as you know, I can't view it in that sense. So I'd be interested to see if I'm wrong and if there's something about it that I've missed. But certainly from a technical point of view, it's a wait, possibly even a sell. But I'm going to say it's a wait.
Yeah. I like Arbitrum fundamentally. I don't think the odds would be for me for a buy at this point. I like to buy at lows, but I like to buy at lows where I feel like the odds are decent for me, that I'm buying at a good price. I can't tell you what a good price is on Arbitrum. We just don't have the history. And there's so many great opportunities where I feel like the odds are massively stacked in my favor that I just can't take one where I just don't know where the odds are. We have relatively low price history on this. So the token was launched and tradable in March of 2023. So we have over a year now. Well, that's cool. But I mean, looking at CoinGecko, you'll see that, okay, 32% of their tokens are in circulation. I don't know what their token investing looks like. I don't know really where it's going to go from here. What I like to see is some kind of long accumulation period that has a nice rounded bottom. And for all I know, this is going to go down some more and provide a nice rounded bottom that might get a lot cheaper than this. So there'd be two advantages if it plays out that way. Number one, it gives you an idea of somewhere near where the lows are, even though it might be not be the lowest part. Number two, you're also closer to the turnaround. At this point, it's like, what evidence do you have that there's a turnaround? None. What evidence do you have that this is a really good price? Well, fundamentally, Arbitrum's getting some usage, which is great, but its market cap is number 39 on CoinGecko's pricing. So it's the 39th highest market cap out there. So is this a good price? I can't say the odds are very good for me. So for me, it's just a wait. There's too many other good deals out there that I can jump in that look like, okay, now is good. Now, do I like Arbitrum? Yes. But it's a combination of I need to like fundamentally what a project's about, the team behind it, and then I'm looking for timing to be good. And this one, the only thing wrong in that equation is I don't know that timing's good. So for me, it's definitely not a buy. If I had some, might even be a sell that I would roll into something that is more likely at a good point. Yeah, what is the use case for the Arbitrum token? Well, the interesting thing with use cases is they've been far less relevant than I thought they would be 4 years ago. In that if everybody's talking about Arbitrum and using Arbitrum, then the token price goes crazy, which is interesting, right? So yeah, what is the use case? I can't say I even know. Does it matter? A little bit it matters in that if it has a really strong use case, it can pump even when it would otherwise be declining. Say the general market is in a pullback, a really strong use case can make that token pump, whereas everything else is pulling back. But in a greater bull market, the use case isn't necessary for things to go great for it. All right, a few other questions. Yeah, Chris Ashby said a little while ago, we got whale games going on right now as we were talking about the general markets. That's definitely true. Let's see if there's anything else. I did want to encourage everyone to smash that like button. Thank you, Bill Gardner, for the reminder. That does help us grow. And here is the benefit of the channel growing. Though I'm just not going to be bullish about things that have been running tremendously. I won't go that route. But the bigger the channel does get, that does help with a lot of things. It does help us reach those other projects. That is like a lot of conferences when they're deciding who is going to speak. They essentially go off your YouTube channel size and your status, like that everyone knows you. And so there's things that it helps with that way that does give us greater influence together. If that happens, I'm just not willing to FUD things at the bottom and pump things at the top. I just won't take that step. It destroys my bigger goal of the audience, of helping create the most informed YouTube audience. And essentially, I like buying lows and I like taking profits while things get massively ahead. So that's just the path I take. And I'm not going to preach something differently than that. Now, some YouTube channels, perhaps they don't even know. A lot of people don't have investment backgrounds. It's something I focused on for over 20 something years, is investing and timing of cycles and how to buy undiscovered gems. And it's really, really hard. Like yesterday, I released a video on my undiscovered gems that nobody's talking about, number 5 on that list. And some people will watch that video and there's no way that they'll buy it. That they just can't. They need enough market confirmation from everyone else that it's going to go up. And that's not where I buy. I often buy at a point that it is very scary. And because I'm looking at fundamental research and I'm looking at the potential of a project. And it doesn't always work out. Sometimes the projects I invest in fail. And sometimes, like a bunch of my wins, like Axie Infinity, Sandbox, Matic, Decentraland. Sometimes you make massive money on them, hundreds and hundreds of X's. Cool. All right. Let's look at the next one, which is a recommendation for ANKR.
Yeah. It's been a while, actually, isn't it, since we've looked at ANKR?
Yeah, it's been about 4 weeks. We get this one
Yeah.
suggested a lot, which is surprising to me.
So some spikes on the chart, which obviously interfere with the way it looks. I'm pretty sure it would have been a wait the last time we looked at it, just because it's still in this downward phase. In fact, it's accelerated a bit to the downside. It stopped around support, which is to be expected because it's still in this consolidation. So, it attempted to break out. This breakout here was really good. It was what we would like to have seen for a move higher for an attack on these highs, which is where it really starts to open up. But gravity's pulled it back in again, so it's still playing this range. I like the fact that it's way off its low. I think we would have said that before. So it's done this first wave, pullback, consolidation. We're waiting for this next wave. It's a real game of patience with this one, isn't it? So for now, it's still a wait, just because it hasn't shown that it wants to break out from this zone as yet. It may be finding support where it's found support before. There's some really good points along the way, and it's actually bounced as we speak over the last couple of days. But that's not enough to say that it's broken out. It's got to really do something significant to show that its dynamics are changing from a range to a trend. But we should still keep looking at this, come back to it for that reason. We don't want to miss those signs when they're there. But one of the first tripwires for me would be a break of this downward trend line here. I know it looks fairly minor, but it would be enough to break through that to show that it's at least gathering some momentum and holding some lows in. In terms of the bigger picture, it getting back over this really important level at 5.3 cents. I know it's sort of popped over there a couple of times, so it's kind of dirtied the level a little bit, but that's so pivotal, the way it was a support, resistance. I think a fast move through there would be telling us that it wants to take that out and be going much higher. So I'd be willing to wait for that because the momentum would be quite massive to push it to the upside. So for the moment, it's a wait.
Awesome. So for me, here's what I'm looking at on the charts. Number one, I do like that lower trend line. So good suggestion, good timing on the suggestion. ANKR protocols, where'd it go? Or ANKR network. Let's look at some of the metrics that I like to see. First of all, their circulating supply and their max supply are the same. So their tokens are in circulation. Their market cap is 276 million. So it's not outside the realm of what I'd invest in. I just don't know enough what's going on a fundamental level. Otherwise, I would rate this as a buy. It's on that lower trend line where I like it to be. See, this is a nice rounded bottom. If you're looking at this, see this nice like rounding, and it's kind of turning directions to go the other way. Now, sometimes you will see that a bigger W forms and it comes back down, forming often a higher low than what these lows were. And then it's really ready to run. So the risk of buying at this point is maybe that's still ahead. But generally, we're in a bullish trend. And I think that many things are going to take off in the near future. We get some really good insights into ANKR's past performance looking back here, right? So ANKR went all the way down in the previous bear market. Now, this is where everyone got really scared as economies were shutting down because of COVID, and the market had a total sell-off. And the prices went so low here that even if we were to go to a lot higher price, like right here, well, essentially right here, prices went over like 500x from here up to the top, going all the way to 22 cents. So, I mean, those were some massive, massive gains as ANKR caught some traction. It's now mostly been pulling back. So during the bull runs of 2021, we had two markets. So it took off in both of them, hit its highs here, came right up to those highs and then pulled back, and generally has been consolidating, having a downtrend. And from its highs of 22 cents, it's about 90% off of that price. Cool. Now, I just don't know enough about their fundamentals of why is ANKR going to outperform other things for me to actually buy it. But I really like where the pricing is on this. So this is often where I like to buy. And a lot of things have been punished. ANKR had recently run all the way up to like 7 cents. It's now back at 2.7 cents. So it's about 2/3 off. Cool. But I can't quite rate it as a buy because I just don't know fundamentally enough about what makes ANKR something long-term that I'm interested in. So I'd like to rate it a buy. It's just a wait for me unless I really come to understand why ANKR is special enough that I want to buy it. Cool. Any other suggestions come in that I've missed? Anything? Scott Wall then asked us, he was talking about his ICP bag. Why don't we have a second? Why don't we take a look at ICP?
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer that question from a technical point of view would be to say, what is your time frame? Because many things, if you look at the beginning of lots of bull markets, you see the market move up and then it triples, quadruples, whatever, and then it comes back again and then comes all the way back and then goes off again and then goes up 10, 20, 30 times. And it'd be like, well, once you've sold, would you have bought back is the question. So what is your time frame? Now, there was some signs here that the market was showing a top of some kind. It was consolidating. It went sideways for a considerable period of time. If we take this period from December to where it actually broke down, which was in June, it did try and break out there. And I would have a lot of sympathy with a bullish view at this point, because that is a continuation of the trend. It snapped back, and we give things a little bit of leeway technically because it can consolidate before it moves back up. And indeed, there is some support levels on a pullback where it could potentially have bounced from. In the end, we see quite a big spike. So I think people got shaken out of this move because there's a spike down there, and it could be signaling the end of the move. So I'm tentatively going to put a level or line across there and say this is the trend rate. Now, let's see if it can accelerate beyond there. I would feel much more comfortable if it can get above this established downward trend line, and that would indicate that it's built on this low, and it's also momentum's changing. And of course, this $10.43 level is absolutely crucial because that's where it was holding major support, and the beginning or the confirmation of this down move started. So recovering that means the bulls are back in control. So for the moment, tentatively, it may have put in a low, and we want to see how it can build on that. If I was looking at this from I don't have a position, which I don't actually, would I buy it here? I could buy a little bit just because it's held this low. It's done something interesting with this spike, but I'd be more inclined to want to wait a bit longer to see that it's broken this downward trend line and recovered some levels before getting in. So I'd have to pitch it as a wait for now. But if it does hold this, it would be really interesting because this is a major low. It would have put in a higher low and started a new upward trend. And that again could be something that could be built on, and we'll see some acceleration. Now, on its own, there's lots of other projects that are doing exactly the same thing. So if everything was moving higher, Bitcoin's in a new high, and everything else, the majors are higher, and all the other projects that we're looking at are all playing close to their key resistance points of breaking out, and this one's sitting down here, I'd have a much bigger problem with being in this, because it would look much worse on a relative basis. But because everything's in a consolidation and correction, it's just acting very much like the broader market. So for now, I think, yeah, there's still potential for this to go higher longer term, because it's pulled off its 23 low, September 23 low. It's still operating from that bull trend. But if and when everything moves higher, and I do believe everything else will move higher, I'd want to see this join that trend as well. So I want to see some evidence, and this may lead it. We may see it with this. So it's definitely worth us coming back to it if we don't look at it within a few weeks from now. But for the moment, it has to be a wait for me, because I've just got to see a little bit more of a buy signal coming in from a neutral position that I'm in right now.
Yeah, the potential that it continues to break down here, it's not clear that the potential is that it's going to reverse from here. And so you'd be taking maybe a 50-50 chance bet buying it from here. Now, where I really liked it, even though it wasn't clear that it was at the bottom, I really liked it in this price zone, and I called it a buy down here. So it went right to $3, and I thought it was massively undervalued, even though the general market cap was higher than I generally like. The team behind it is strong. Their technology, what they're doing, I think it's a narrative that does really good in the coming bull run. And we saw that it took off from there, and it went all the way up to like $21. Cool. So it went 7x when most things weren't going that way, and it has since pulled back. Now, if you remember, just notice these patterns. When was everyone on YouTube talking about Internet Computer Protocol and it was the next big thing? Up here. What happened? This. Are they talking about it now? No. Why? Because that's not what grows their YouTube channel. And so they talk about things when they're hot and everybody's searching for them. And when they become a better buy, now they're not talking about them. So is Internet Computer Protocol a better buy for me now? Well, it depends on if you're buying blue chips, right? It's solidly in the blue chip category. Now, at half this market cap, I was just like, oh, it's too good to pass up. It's a good buy. Even though it's much higher than I generally want, it has massive upside from here. And it ended up doing really good. Now, I remember when ICP came out and everybody was talking about it. And it didn't just go straight down like it's reflected here. This chart doesn't quite show that it went up before it went down. And everybody was talking about it. And I was looking at the fully diluted valuation of ICP at the time. I'm like, the fully diluted market cap was like in the hundreds of billions of dollars at these prices. And it was absolutely ludicrous. Yet all the major YouTube channels were talking about it. And everyone was talking about how much ICP you're getting. And they're like, hey, how much ICP are you getting? I'm like, none. And they're like, are you crazy? It's going to be the next big thing. And I was like, that might be the case, but I just don't like buying expensive. Sure enough, it came down. And when it was at $3, I was like, oh, now is the time that it's worth buying. But here's on a logarithmic scale. It's come back for another dip. It might come back lower than this. I don't know. Or maybe, like Paul said, it could break back up from here. It's hit this trend line going from here that it might have done its 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and be ready to run some more. Don't know. Do I like the project long term? Yes. Are we going into a bull run, greater bull run? I'm pretty sure that we are. So is ICP going to do well from here? Yes. Am I putting money into it? No. I'm in riskier projects because during a greater bull market, the riskier projects massively outperform the blue chips. Cool. That is if they don't fail, and some of them do fail. All right. That was a lot of our suggestions. We got one more by our bro. Let's take a look at JASMY, and then we'll be done.
Sure. JASMY. Just need to get my chart up. Great. Thank you. JASMY, I still really like that. I mean, I was really excited with this breakout here because this was a really nice pattern and 2 resistance points, and it went through, which is great. It came back for a retest. I would like to have stopped at this point, but you can't have perfection, can you? It's gone a little bit below, but I still think it's showing some strength again short term at a higher low. So this is kind of rounding back up again. So overall, I think this is doing relatively well. So this is one of the markets that I think is doing comparatively well compared to some other coins and indeed in Bitcoin. So as long as it holds, as long as it doesn't break this pattern of rising lows, that would concern me a little bit, and it would imply a bigger correction. We have got major support down all the way down here, but that's hopefully not going to be tested. We've got a trend line that comes in over time. This is the main trend line that should act as long-term support. So for me, it's a buy. I like the pullback. I like the fact that it's got rising lows. I think at some stage there will be a new wave back into stuff because we're heading towards as people are saying, that's the end of the bull market for everything. I don't think that's right. We have to look for things that could outperform. It's much riskier to play in the altcoin space, but we all know that. But for me, the ones that stand out are the ones that are closer to their more recent highs and are trending up, and this kind of fits the bill for that. So yeah, I mean, I would like it to, as I say, to be pressing slightly higher, but it would really be pulling against what everything else is doing because everything else is correcting. It would be great if it was breaking out through this point here. That looked fantastic. There's a lot of resistance there from the prior move, and things can often mirror. So if we look at this as a mirror image, you can see how it's gone up. This is mirroring this kind of move here. So it wouldn't be exact, but it's funny how this happens. So this pullback, if it gets back up through here, I'd be really, really bullish on it, and it's got a chance of doing that. So, for me, it's a buy.
Awesome. All right. Pellets and buy. For me, a slightly different story. Now, if you remember, if you follow this channel for a while, you know that I talked about JASMY a lot back here. There were some things about it that I really, really liked, that a lot of the executives had come from Sony. And in Japan, business and government are way intertwined. And Sony has a lot of political power. So I found it interesting that some people, like the former CEO of Sony, he left Sony, and he comes and he starts this blockchain company called JASMY. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the news on JASMY was really hard to understand because it was in Japanese, and I don't speak any Japanese. In fact, Japanese is one of those languages that take forever to learn. So I don't speak any Japanese. And it was hard to get news on it. But there was just enough that was interesting that I thought, at a certain point, this massively turns around. So I was calling it a buy all below 0.4 cents, all the way down to 0.2, like 0.28 cents. And then it went 10x from there. Okay. So is JASMY probably going to continue to do well from here? I would imagine it is. One of the reasons why I'm not rating it a buy from here is the first 10x gains are already missed. And so say something in the greater bull run for the 4-year period that we're waiting for, it goes 100x overall. Well, if you miss the first 10x gains, well, then all you have left is 10x. But sometimes things you think you're going to do 100x only do 40x. And if you miss the first 10x gains, all that's left is 4x. And 4x gains sounds like a lot, but not over a 4-year period, not for what crypto can do. On the flip side, if you had bought JASMY here and then you get 10x up, and there's other things that you really like that haven't yet pumped, it's not bad timing to then throw those 10x gains into something else that you really, really like that hasn't yet pumped yet. Because then if that other thing goes 40x and you already have 10x gains, essentially you made 400x gains on that money. So JASMY is almost like, is it going to do well from here? Yes. How well? That is really uncertain. I don't know. But the market cap now is 1.2 billion. Something like this can go to market cap of 50 billion. Maybe if it's really crazy, 100 billion. That would probably be a stretch. But it can definitely do a lot higher than this, maybe 20x, 30x, 40x. But essentially, if it did another 20x from here, but you missed the first 10x gains, that's a 200x, and instead you just made 20x. So I can't rate it as a buy here. It's either a wait or a sell. Sell from the standpoint of, do I think it has a good future? Yes. It would be harvesting the gains to roll into something else that I really like that's absolutely been punished, and the narrative doesn't happen. We've had a few other things come in. Emerson has some good points. 2 Launchpad suggestions, check out. Dex check. I don't know anything about them. Gains. Both have roughly 50% of tokens vested and give cheaper access to some good projects than Seedify. I do think Seedify is massively overpriced, and that is not the place to go for Launchpad tokens, because there's other Launchpads that get access to those same launches that haven't been pumped by Alex Becker to the moon like Seedify has, where the valuation on the tokens is already so high like Seedify is. Shrapnel, terrifyingly low or terribly tempting? Great point. Shrapnel came out and it absolutely pumped to the moon. And I hate buying high, even if I like the underlying project. And I like the underlying project. This is starting to look like what I like, where I like to see that rounding bottom, though it's just still early on that rounding bottom curve. What's your thoughts on Shrapnel's price action, Paul?
Sorry, there's 2, isn't there? I'm just checking.
Top one.
It's the top one, is it? Okay. Let's have a look. Yeah, no, I couldn't touch that. No, it's still in the downward trend. At the very least, it's got to, take this spike out at 0.8%, or this resistance here. But even that, not a lot of data. Have I got all of it? I have asked for all of it. Yeah, it's no, not at this point. I definitely a wait. It's got a too smooth a downward trend. So either we've got to see some form of basing pattern or some capitulation that shows that everyone's flushed out, and then it rallies back up to indicate that there's been some buying pressure. We got something like that here. You see how it went down and then it started to base, but it never broke through this resistance point. We've got 1, 2, 3 points of resistance around 13 cents. So that's a failed base there, and it just continued the downward trend. So we would expect at least how long was that? May, let's see, hold on a sec. That's May to June. So at least a month's worth of basing price action would be reasonable to say that this trend is over. So we should come back to it, but I wouldn't personally, for me. Now, that doesn't mean this isn't the low. This could be the low. It could go right up from here, and I'll be completely wrong. But that's how I have to analyze the markets from a technical point of view.
Yeah, I agree with Paul's analysis. It's still a wait for me, and it's just I want to see a bigger rounding bottom here. Like a lot of their tokens probably come in a circulation. Notice that still only 8% of their tokens are even in circulation. So these early days often have a lot of vesting. Blockchain gaming hasn't come back into the narrative. Remember, this is when it was getting tons of coverage up here. And just note, when you're seeing tons of coverage from bigger channels, that is a terrible time to buy. So Shrapnel went all the way to what at the top, 43 cents. It has now absolutely been punished since then, and probably is going to get punished some more. Will this game ultimately make it? I don't know. I think there's definitely room for this type of shooter. Call of Duty, you know, Modern Warfare, what is it, Warzone. These kinds of shooters do really, really well. And I think ownership within the shooters is a really good idea. So Shrapnel is one of the first going that way. Shrapnel team brings unmatched experience in blockbuster games, transmedia, virtual production, gaming as a service, and core platform technology. We have worked on some of the biggest titles in the industry: Halo, Call of Duty, Star Wars, BioShock, Ghost of Tsushima, and more. So that's a critical element, is that their team has a background in this. So we'll see what it does. Cool. But timing, I don't like the timing yet. All right. Cool. Abe says, Paul, thank you for coming on every week. You and Jay are a huge reason why this will be a fruitful bull market for me. Awesome, Abe.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. If you don't mind, will you put sports and animal concerts in the comment section, Abe, for us to look at next week? Cool. All right, later today, got Omi is my homie coming up, so join us for that. I will also be working on the next video, my number 4 pick for massive potential gains. So check out that when that video is released. Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure as always. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, many of you have been preparing for this upcoming bull run, which has technically already started, but the major action hasn't happened. And the major action usually happens within a 2-month period. So we're not quite there yet. We've had a lot of gains, as Paul laid out the case very well. So Bitcoin was like at 17,000, and, you know, it's pulled back into the 54,000 range, and people are like, oh no, it's the end of the world. It's just 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's just part of what happens. So over the greater period, we're still in this greater bull run. We're gearing up for a massive blow off top that might come later this year. It might come next year. There's a lot of variables still in play that could make this bull run a massive, massive bull run, or it could mute the impact that this bull run could have. I'm leaning towards the former, but we're going to see how it plays out. But if you're here, you're in the right place, and likely you're doing the right thing. So this bull run is going to be awesome for you. Enjoy this wrap, everyone. Fun way to just reinforce these principles. I do recommend you listen to the words on this, because these words, I wrote the words myself, because like it's true. And so many people do the wrong things in investment cycles. And so they miss out on the really big gains. This wrap is just a fun way of reinforcing those.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, buy before you could. It was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. sticking around. The time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.